The Adjusted Life Podcast, where we aim to simplify your day to elevate your life. All right, welcome back, guys. Dr. Andrew with Dr. Bryan. This episode, we're going to kind of dive into exercising, fitness, movement. No pun intended, I guess, with our office with our office name.
I love it. And as we get into talking about exercise, something came to my mind this week when we had a new practice member come in.
Let's hear it.
Based off of our website, he wanted the strong guy to adjust him.
Oh, man.
Right?
Nice,
he wanted to meet the strong
Who is he talking about, though, Brian? Who is he talking about?
Well, he was talking about me, of course.
yeah, of course.
Gosh, that was so funny. I love it.
Who was it?
And then Bill went in there. Dr. Bill.
That's
Bill.
All right. So who was it that came back and said that? Was it Bridget?
Yes, Bridget. Yep.
Okay. So Bridget came back in the back office and she had just spoke with that patient, and she goes back and you're right. Bill went in there and then she came back. She's like, wait, actually, I forgot to mention this to you guys. He had asked for the strong doctor because. Or whatever. I think I don't know, because he thinks he can, or the strongest doctor is going to be able to move him. Or
yeah, it's so funny.
I don't know. But we have
funny stuff like that happen all the time.
Speaking of that, though, we did have a patient come in maybe close to a year and a half ago where he asked for the CrossFit guy. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Remember that? Because he read our bios and he's like, that kind of relates more to me.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's so funny when that happens, but
I am glad we sent Bill in there, though.
Yeah, and Bill is in great shape.
Yeah, he's small but mighty.
Yeah,
mighty.
And he's not on the website yet, so he was picking between me and you. I just want to bring that to the surface.
Burn.
Here. Yes, let's go.
Burn.
But I look forward to diving into exercise and what we do personally to make sure that we're staying at an optimal level of fitness. And trying to achieve the best results out of our body. And,
optimal is subjective, but optimal for us, I would say.
Yeah, for us in our situations. Yeah. What about you? Open it up. What does working out look like for you?
Ooh, man. Yeah. So right now, I would phrase the way that I work out as like functional bodybuilding. Mm-hmm. Probably doesn't look like it too much. It's just because I'm wearing a baggy sweater.
Right.
I promise.
Yes. Tighter clothes next podcast.
yes. Yeah. Tighter clothes. Cut off t-shirt.
Come on.
But no, I would say like functional bodybuilding. Mm-hmm. I used to do CrossFit. That's kind of, when I was in high school and junior high, I used to do like the traditional push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, squats in my room.
Yeah.
I bought one of those. Was that Metcons?
Like a Metcon, like where you just kind of like do as many rounds as possible and knock that out?
That's probably being generous. I would probably just do 50 push-ups and then try to do sets of like 5 pull-ups. I've always been pretty bad at pull-ups, strict-wise. But then just do 100, air squats, 100 sit-ups. So it was just very linear progression.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing, right? I just wanted to be good at baseball. Mm-hmm. So that's how it kind of started. Fell into the aesthetic mindset where I just wanted to look better when I was young. Didn't really understand the profoundness that, exercising could actually have via health, but also just performance.
Yeah.
But when I found CrossFit when I was 20, I kind of fell in love with it. Was really bad at it. Mm-hmm. Was you and I both are familiar with the workout Fran.
Yeah.
Right. Thrusters and pull-ups. I had to scale it. I was very awful, but I loved it because it just completely.
This is right when you started.
This is my first workout.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Fran?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Very first one.
Welcome.
This is how they did it back in 2009, 2010. It was you walked in, they had you just one of the lady workouts. Yeah. When I say lady, one of the girl named workouts, not feminine as a
in
degradation.
CrossFit, aren't they all?
They're not all named after females.
Okay,
but
majority.
There's an original group of ladies that started CrossFit back in the day in California, and they just had Helen, Fran, Diane. Linda, Diane were some of the original OG.
I did not know that.
Class members of the originator of CrossFit. But anyway, that was kind of my truly introduction to organized fitness. Mm-hmm. So did that for pretty much up until I was forced out of it from a back injury when I was 31, I think. And I kind of tried to get back into it after that and compete because I tried to compete for a long time and coached it for a long time. But that was kind of my window. I was very good at what I did from a coaching standpoint. Compound movements, snatching, clean and jerking, the Olympic lifts, right? Yeah. The powerlifting, all the other plyometric movements. and gymnastics movements that we do in CrossFit, I didn't have a whole lot of background in bodybuilding. And I'm not talking like the get up on stage and, showcase, that way. Yeah. I don't do that myself, but when I say functional, it's a perfect blend in my world. It's a perfect blend of isolated movements. So think like curls, right? Think knee extensions, think machines, but also using free weights in a very intentionally isolated way. Yeah. I would snatch, I would clean and jerk, I would back squat and deadlift if I could with my back. And I might be able to now. It just, I don't see the value in pushing it like I used to. Yeah. So I find alternate routes to kind of get those, exercises or get those stimulus. Yeah. To get that stimulus. So, and then I also blend in running, biking, rowing, ski erging, some other modalities like that. But that's pretty much what it looks like, the movements wise, what I try to do. And I just blend those into, supersets. So like doing 2 or 3 or more exercises, with some segmented rest in between it. And then I'll typically do like some sort of a Metcon, right? CrossFit style, but not quite as intense at the end. Yeah. And I've been doing that for, probably 4 years since my back injury.
So an injury, you were CrossFitting, getting deep into that, you got injured, and then you found something else that worked for you to where you can still exercise consistently, but not feel that vulnerability of like hurting yourself.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah, essentially. So like at first it became, okay, because being in the gym was a huge part of my identity in life, right? And, I had to kind of shed that, right? I had to kind of shed my identity away from just always being in the gym and being that guy, which was tough to do mentally. But yeah, ever since the injury, I still wanted to work out, so I just had to make it work.
I like that because I think there's probably listeners out there that, hurt their knee or hurt their shoulder, and they were in such a good routine of exercise and working out, and then they had that injury, and now they don't do it at all anymore.
Right.
Because I think we hear that a good bit.
All the time.
Within the 4 walls here is like, yeah, I was in the best shape of my life, and then I got hurt, and now I can't do anything. And it's like, well, why can't you do anything? Well, my knee hurts. So I think that's really cool that you were focused on getting back to lifting, but lifting looks different, and you're okay with it.
Now I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and again too, and you kind of got me thinking. I feel way better at now than I did in any of my years. I think if I can remember back doing CrossFit, not in the sense that CrossFit's bad. It gets a bad rep. Yeah. Okay, from a lot of people. And I think there's like almost this very black and white, contrast of people that are in it. They're like dogmatic about it. This is the only way to do this. And there's people on the outside that are like, oh, CrossFit's the worst thing you could ever do. It's
it is very.
And it's coming from a coach, right? Yeah, coming from a former coach who used to, do it and also coach it at a fairly high level. There's a good way to do it. And if you could take me now and put me back in my 20-year-old body, I would do what I'm doing now back then. And then I would probably sprinkle in maybe a little bit more time in the gym, right? Maybe 30 minutes more. And I would probably do a little bit more compound movements and push the intensity a little bit because I could. But what got me injured, I think, was 2 things primarily, to just break it down simply, is one would be a lack of tissue integrity. So think about like the difference between doing a bicep curl and a pull-up. Right? A bicep curl really concentrates the elbow flexor, so like the biceps, right? The muscle on the front part of your arm here. And then pull-ups attack multiple muscles, predominantly your lats, right? The muscles on your upper arm and back. So both are good, right? But I was very good at pull-ups and I was horrible at curls. And so the integrity of my joints, right? In this case, on that example, the elbow and shoulder, let's say, weren't that strong. Right? I was just very good at doing the movement. My nervous system was primed to do that movement. So when my back got hurt, I was very good at snatching. I was very good at squatting. I was very good at clean and jerking. But my technique far outweighed my body's ability to actually move that weight. Right? So eventually that caught up to me. My joints broke down. And my spine literally said, that's it, buddy. Yep. You're done. So if I could encourage myself, right, going forward, but anybody else who's kind of like coming from that injury phase or even just starting, being like, where do I start? I would say, well, you want to build up your muscles, right? Probably more in that isolated sense so that you can perform the compound movements. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you should wait, forever until you do compound, but there should be a huge emphasis on building somebody's, tissues up before they just go out there and, put them under serious load.
Of course. And I think, especially in the realm of exercise, it's like, you got to walk before you jog. You got to jog before you run. You got to run before you do like a max sprint.
Right.
And I think a lot of people, especially, again, the new year, new me, people getting back into the gym, and they just want to go right into it. Mm-hmm. And that's the human nature, right? Like we get into it, we get excited, we're going to dive all in. I know I'm like that, especially with playing sports. It's like, I like the CrossFit and I like that group training because it's mindless for me. I go in, there's a workout on the board, and then I'm competing against myself, and other people may be doing that workout. So I like that competition side, but I'm the same way. I got hurt about 2 years ago, my shoulder, and as a chiropractor, I mean, like, you can't have a bad shoulder, and I did some functional stuff with you for a little bit, and I came back after getting back into CrossFit, and I told you, I'm like, man, my shoulder feels a lot better now that I slowed it down a little bit, did some of that functional bodybuilding with you to really focus on what muscles were weak and get them strengthened, and maybe what muscles were tight, get those to loosen, right? Because I was so dominant in one area. And I love it because I think exercise, there's such a variety out there, and what I tell people in this office is, do the variety, because people are like, is yoga good for me? Well, yeah.
Yep.
Do some yoga. Can I lift heavy? Yeah, there's a time to lift heavy, but there's also a time to lift light and maybe go lighter with more reps. Like, that's a real thing. If anything, though, you hit it right on the head, is find somebody, especially like if you need a personal trainer, a coach, but somebody that's going to work on your form, because you might be able to lift that weight, like you were saying, when you were younger and you were gung-ho and just going, just going all out. You could lift it and you could lift heavy, but then there was an instance where, bam, everything shut down. And that's where we see a downward spiral for most people, is that injury, because then they get injured. And I mean, getting injured now, I'm 35, you just don't recover the same. It takes a little bit longer, but it's so easy to get out of that routine and then really never pick it back up. Yeah. Because I'm going to be honest, exercise is hard, right? Like, a lot of people, they don't start it because it's uncomfortable.
And to that point, it may not even be the exercise itself, but it's the setting the habit and the routine of it.
Of course.
Like for us.
Making the time.
Yeah, exactly. So we used to work out at lunch, right? Over at CrossFit. You used to do the class. I used to, do my own functional work. And then eventually that got to a place where you would mention, hey, let's go at 4 a.m, right? Before shift. And I was like, I don't think I told you, but I was in my head, I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, 4 a.m.
4 a.m. is early, bro.
Yeah.
But we started doing 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where, we can almost thank this podcast for that, because like in the first episode, this was kind of birthed out of the shower.
Yeah.
Right? Separate showers.
Yeah.
Okay. But just conversations.
Having the conversation.
Yeah. Having conversations like that. And so I love to work out at 4 a.m. now. Like, I don't like working out noon, afternoon, even early. I say early morning, like 7, 9 o'clock on my off days. I'd so much rather get up at 4 a.m. and just do it, because now it's a habit.
Yeah. Well, and like, you get it done.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the 4 a.m. too. And now I'm back to, going during our lunch. But it's like, there's so many things that can happen during the day. Like for people that work out after work, the struggle sometimes is on the way home. Do I go to work out, or do I go home with my family, eat dinner? And especially if you're not the most motivated, you're probably going to go home. And like, that could be a good thing. You need to be home with your family, But if you put it at a time where it's a non-negotiable for your body, you deserve it, right? Yeah. And so that's really cool, because our workout routines right now look different, because I went back to kind of the more CrossFit style. You're still doing the functional bodybuilding, but like, I like my lunch hour because it kind of breaks my day up. But it is hard sometimes to leave when we're backlogged with different things in the office.
Right.
And I'm always like, man, Andrew's already got his workout done. But it does motivate me to get to the gym, because I know that you've already accomplished your workout.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that can be a stress, because most people, they understand that they need to move and work out.
Yeah.
And I guarantee we've all been there where if we skip it, and you might feel this, say you don't wake up at 4 a.m. Do you feel a little bit more stressed, like that you didn't get your workout in?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, this week was more challenging because Sunday I had a setback as far as like my right hip.
Yeah.
So like
doing what? What were you doing?
You know this answer.
Adult baseball league.
Adult baseball league. Yeah. Yep. I wasn't even safe.
Yeah. Andrew comes to the dugout. We're in an adult baseball league that plays on Sunday. And he comes to the dugout and he's like, man, my back is so tight. Like I don't know if I'm going to be able to sprint anymore. Well, the next inning we go into the field and the other team hits a gap shot. He's center field, hits a gap shot. Andrew,
I don't even know how I look, but
Andrew had to run to get the ball. And I was just dying laughing because he had the shortest strides. He could barely move, but you got the ball in. And then
I appreciate
and then he took himself out of the game. But sorry, I'm laughing at your injury just because it was so the mental picture I'm getting right now. It was just the worst timing for the ball to be hit to him. Oh, okay.
There were two that inning actually.
Yeah,
both the left center and the right
I'm
center.
sitting there at third base just laughing, and I mean this is the most non-serious baseball league, and it's just a way for us to get out and have some fun, but and get injured, I guess.
Yeah,
because I'm like thinking. My wife always tells me like, just don't get injured, and I'm like, babe, I'm playing third base. I jog when I get a hit, if I hit the ball anymore. I mean, I think I've struck out more times in this adult league than I have my whole life in baseball. And so I don't think you can get hurt walking from the plate to the dugout, but we'll see, you know.
Don't. It's not fun.
Yeah, torn Achilles, striking out. Oh, this is great. I would retire. I'd go home and bury my mitt. That is so funny.
But yeah, so it forced.
So funny.
Like Bryan was saying, it forced me to not work out. Well, I chose not to work out.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday.
I'm literally crying because I just cannot. It was just the funniest thing. I wish that we could just put a video up of that.
No,
but it was great.
Dragging that leg, I couldn't even run into the dugout.
Yeah. It was great.
But no, you're right. I mean, even doing this for so many years, right? Even after 4 days of taking off, I'm like, oh man, sleeping in till like 5 o'clock feels a lot better, you know. But then I get up at 4 o'clock this morning and I'm back to feeling good again and you know, back in the gym. So I can imagine somebody who maybe doesn't have that I'd say background or just that amount of years doing it, that routine, that if they do get injured, it's tough for them to kind of get back.
Yeah.
Right? And like you talked about it, patients in our office that have knee pain, elbow pain, shoulder pain, low back pain, you know, something going on with pain somewhere. It's easy for them to just fall off that wagon. And I understand it too. Like my background is in kinesiology and exercise science. You know, I have a coaching history. I have massage therapy and now chiropractic. So like my world lives in how do I make this work?
Yeah.
Right. How can I work around that? And I know that people don't have that.
Yeah.
So how can we I guess give people something to encourage them to start? Like let's take somebody who hasn't worked out at all ever, right? Should they just go to the gym and just look up something online, or should they find a personal trainer, or should they join a CrossFit gym or Pilates or some sort of organized
training?
Yeah.
I mean, I think so. You know, join the organized group because one, you're going to find accountability, and two, you're going to find some guidance, right? Mm-hmm. But I think also, like a lot of people, it's like their fear of starting comes from their fear of not being great at it. You know, like I'm getting back into running. I run a mile and I'm really tired, you know, where, you know, 3-4 years ago, I could run a mile and run a 5K, run a 10K, whatever I wanted to, and not feel, you know, as tired. But I think the thing that stops them is from even beginning is that fear of just not being good at it. But I think you need to go in there and just, you know, say, hey, this is my journey. Don't look at the person left or right of you, because I think that can be discouraging. You know, you see this guy in there, he's super ripped, or this lady in there, she's super fit and she's doing all the movements and barely sweating, and you're over here like doing half the workout and you're dying. And I think it's one of those things that, you know, just don't compare yourself to other people. It's your journey, you know, be better than yourself each day. win the day. I love listening to Ed Milet myself because he's such a self-motivator. And I think in the world, it's like, you have to be your biggest cheerleader. For people that are married or have a significant other, like it's awesome when your spouse supports you and they should support you, but it's one of those things that you still have to do it for yourself. You know? And I always go back to like the theory of on the plane, they say, put the oxygen on yourself, then put it on your kids. And when you think about that, that's life. Take care of yourself first. If you take care of yourself, you can then give your fullest to everybody else around you.
Yeah.
And so find that time that works for you. Find that class that works for you. When you go, find a friend in there, meet somebody and say, hey, I'm new to this, but I want you to text me and hold me accountable to what we're going to do. And I think that when you do that, you're more likely to be consistent. It's more likely to be fun, right? Because, that's what it comes down to. It has to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Right? And the journey has to start on day one.
And the why has to be strong enough, right?
Yeah.
So for instance, when you texted me and asked if we could start working out at 4 a.m, I did want to say yes, but I'm comfortable working out at the gym myself, but I kind of got the vibe from you that you were looking for an accountability buddy.
Yeah.
Right? Because 4 a.m. is tough for anybody to get up at that time and work out. And then, two, I was also looking for, it'd be fun to work out with someone else,
yeah.
Right? Because just doing something by yourself for years, gets old after a while. Back to like setting time for, making time for exercising. Because I think, you had mentioned, one example, if somebody's driving home, they're like, man, should I go work out or should I go home? Right? Well, they're going to rationalize themselves most of the time out of that. Well, I should probably get home to my kids and all that kind of stuff.
I'm a little tired.
So if you just get up in the morning, right, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? What else are you up in the morning for outside of maybe some people have to go to work earlier? But what I do in my schedule is when I make my schedule is I set the times for my training and then everything else around that. So so work, for instance, work is not the first thing that goes on my calendar, right? It's okay, where do I work out? And for me, it's 4 a.m, right? And then work, from 6 till, 7.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I plug in everything else that I need to do. I don't know if you do that similar thing, but I would encourage people who, haven't done this or trying to, how do I make time? Well, just literally open up Google Calendar or get one of those paper ones and literally just start by plugging in, okay, where do I want to work out, right? And then after that, put in all the other obligations you have and see how that looks.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to work out at, let's say, 3 o'clock every day, 3 p.m., and then you write that down in there, but then you have a work conflict, every day at 3 p.m., well, you're going to look at that and say, okay, well, I can't do that. Yeah. Right? And then you'll find another place.
Yep.
But when you start looking at it, when you start shifting your mindset from, well, where can I fit this in to, no, where can I fit everything else in? You start thinking like, I'm a fitness enthusiast who also happens to be blank.
Yeah.
Right?
That's good. And I would say start with a realistic expectation. Don't put working out every day on your calendar, like 7 days a week. Okay. Because you're going to see those days and you're going to miss one. You're going to get discouraged and more than likely you're going to fall off.
Good point.
But put it like 3 or 4 times a week. And even if it's 3 days of like a higher intensity and then like one day you're like, okay, I'm going to go for a walk here, just to get in that habit. And then you can start adding more days to your frequency as far as working out. I do think, as we kind of discussed this prehand before coming on and having this chat, something came to mind, and everyone's heard this quote, I think, but it's, a healthy man has a million dreams, right? Like their visions, their dreams, it's there. An unhealthy man has one dream, right? And it's to be healthy. So I would say like anybody who's looking to start their journey, like you said, have a why, but take care of yourself. You owe it to you. That should be your why, and it should be big enough. Like, hey, I want to live the longest, healthiest life I can live. I want to pick my grandkids up. I want to play recreational baseball when I'm 70. Like, that stuff is fun, man. Like, I don't know about you, but I have had people in my life that are ridden with pain, and it's like the last 5 years of their life, I remember them just being on the sofa.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much money you have when you're in pain all the time and you can't move. So that's kind of how I'm going to end this just on my end is just, the challenge would be just get 3 days on the calendar. Get 3 days where you're going to exercise and you're going to move. And just like you said, write it into your iPhone, write it on your mirror in the morning, and don't miss those days, and make it a non-negotiable. What about you?
Yeah, I like that. I'll kind of just caveat, onto that, on top of the calendar thing where, put 3 days where you're going to work out, and put that first, and then see how, and plug everything else, around that.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as just knock over that first domino.
Yeah, that's so good. And so if you like the podcast, share it. If you got something out of it, put it in the comments below, or, as we challenge you guys, just write something that you're going to change in your routine that's going to help you take care of yourself.
Love it.
Cool.